Welcome, everyone. Dr. Josh Long here with AME Podcast. This is my quest to talk to folks who are still playing their instruments, still involved with music making, what I call beyond the classroom, online or online. Well, this is online, but lifelong learning in music is what I like to do. And a lot of people do it online, as I say it, and as well as in person. We have the gracious of doing this via our online aptitude here because it's just nice to talk to folks, again, who are making music. We're sponsored by Art and Music Emporium, serving artistic excellence. We do things such as fix instruments. We also do another bunch of things called performing initiatives. And what I mean by that is we do things such as tuba Christmases. And I know we're recording this in the summer, but we are getting ready and scheduling them already because will happen eventually soon, as well as our annual community band by the sea, which I'm actually supporting the shirt today, if you can see it in the video, where we rehearse one day prior to a concert, and it's usually the last weekend in July, and that is coming up this month as we were recording this one in July, as well as we have another performance initiative called the Bethlehem Steel Company Legacy Band. Last year, we played that at Music Fest in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, a big music festival down there. And this year, we're going to be in the Industrial Museum in October. So again, if anybody's interested in these events that we do, they're all available for anybody in the community. Again, we usually get together prior to rehearse. So if you're not in the area, that is okay. And then we do the performance. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel just so that you can get more information about our podcasts and other videos that we do as they come out. We also are on Facebook. You can give us a like there. And we also do have a Patreon account, which again, all our proceeds go to helping people continuing making music beyond the classroom and our what I call lifelong learning and music engagement. I'm really excited about our next guest that is going to be talking in our podcast. I actually met him when I was in the State College area, and I know he was there. It's just kind of funny. He was there when I was undergrad, and he was there when I was in my graduate years, and he's been there. He's been a staple of the State College area, as well as performing all in the area. I know he's a retired music educator now, but you can still see him performing with such groups as the State College Municipal Band, the Bellefonte Community Band, as well as others. And I know he is supporting the shirt today of one of the groups he was in for quite a many years called the Tarnished Six. So we'll get into all of those greatest ensembles and talk to him. But please welcome John Kovalchik. How are you, John?
I'm doing just great, Josh. Thank you very much.
Well,
That was a good intro.
oh yeah, thank you.
So, yeah, I've been here in the State College area a long, long time. I came up to go to school at Penn State in 1968. So, so when I graduated, I not only got a diploma,
Yeah.
but I got a wife and two other jobs. So, uh, all in the same year. 1971, I graduated, and I met my wife while I was student teaching. And I met another teacher that had offered me a job, said, I'm taking a sabbatical next year. Would you mind taking my job for a year? And I actually turned it down once because I had a low draft number. If you're old enough to remember that,
Mhm. Yep.
my lottery number was 48.
Okay.
And so actually, it was spring of that year, spring of 71, that I went to Pittsburgh and took my draft physical. And I knew I had flat feet. I didn't know that would keep me out of the Army, but
Oh.
but it did. So when I came back to State College, I said, "Is that job offer still good? I'll take it." So, so about that time, I thought, I'm such a romantic. I said to my girlfriend, maybe why not just go ahead and get married? You've got a job. Now I have a job. Let's get married. Okay. I mean, that's how that happened. And then we got married in September that year. And 2 weeks after we got married, another guy on the music department said, I have this Dixieland band, the Tarnished Six. Uh, I understand you play tuba. I said, yes, I do. So he invited me to a gig, and I wound up playing an entire set. I thought, you know how a sit-in is supposed to work. You get to play the last number of a set, and if you're really good, they let you play one more.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
he went through the whole first set and didn't say anything. I thought, what's going on here? I had to borrow a horn from the school. I didn't even have my own yet. And he said, okay, the beginning of the second set, he said, would you want to play now? I said, well, yeah, okay. I thought, this isn't how it's supposed to work. But I wound up playing the whole second set because I knew every song he called up.
Wow.
And so I guess I passed my audition. So that lasted for 44 years. And I had told my wife that one thing I wanted to do, I wanted to keep playing. I'd started string bass when I
Hmm.
was in, oh, I think it was eighth grade. I didn't switch from tuba. I played in addition to tuba. I found a string bass sitting in a closet, and I basically taught myself for the first couple of years, and I could at least play the jazz band charts that were put in front of me. And by the time I got to high school, I got a real string bass teacher.
Hmm.
And I thought, boy, I really want to keep doing this. This is a lot of fun. It was jazz band stuff, it was quartets and quintets, stuff like that. And that's why I said, I'm going to keep playing this. Never, ever thought I'd be doing 99% tuba with the Dixieland band. And I did keep playing the string bass because in college, I had my tuba with me, and
Hmm.
the band director at the time was Dr. Jim Dunlop. And my second year in concert band, he came up and said, I understand you play string bass. I said, yes, sir. He said, I need you to play string bass. I said, yes, sir. You just didn't have to talk about it. When he said, I need you to do this, that's what you did. Incantation and dance has a very
Hmm.
important string bass part in it. He didn't have anybody to play it, so here I was. So from that point on, I kept playing gigs, and once I graduated, I think the first state college group I ran into was actually the Little German Band.
Hmm.
So I was playing tuba with them too. But the longer I stayed with the Tarnished Six, the more gigs they got. I mean, we used
Right.
to play a lot. When I first started with them, they played every Friday night at the first,
Oh, wow.
every Friday night. And that's why when my third year of teaching is when they asked me to assist with the marching band. Well, Friday nights and marching band don't always work together.
Hmm.
But, I played when I could. And then we started getting more gigs. For example, the Tarnished Six would play at Penn State football games after Penn State football games at the Nittany Lion Inn. And we did that gig for over 20 years. Um, in fact, even one of our albums was live at the Nittany Lion Inn, and one of the people in the audience just happened to be Bryce Jordan.
Oh, wow.
So that was pretty cool. And so let's see, where do we go from there? Well, the municipal band came along only part time because
Hmm.
once our boys were here, if I was going out the door, I better be bringing back a check.
Yep. Understood.
So the municipal band did, I couldn't just play for free or for fun anymore. I
Hmm.
played for a lot of fun, but the Tarnished Six paid.
Hmm. Yep.
So I was having fun and getting paid. That's why I stayed with them for so long. Um, let's see what else. Oh, actually, no, Richard Victor came along in 1975 because, well, the director at State College came down with bone cancer. He had slipped on a ladder and he thought he just had a bad back.
Hmm.
But No, it turned out to be much worse than that. And he made it to 1975, and that's when I called Rich because I knew him from the Blue Band,
Hmm.
and he was still on campus teaching lessons for grad students and stuff like that. Actually, well, let's see. No, let me get this straight. He was a grad student and helping with lessons, and I think he also had undergrad lessons
Okay.
to teach. So I called him and I said, they want a sub for the rest of this year. This was in February of 75. They want a sub for the rest of the year. Get your paperwork in now. And so I think I called him on a Thursday. He had the paperwork in on a Friday and he was working Monday.
Oh,
It
wow.
was that fast. And since he did such a nice job, they made his job permanent. So we were working together from 75 in the fall of 75, and we both retired in 2011. So we all that time we worked together. And he recognized the importance of getting back to lifelong playing,
Hmm.
playing after high school. You know, now football games were a little bit different.
Hmm.
I'd stick around for halftime. I'd do the announcements at the stadium for halftime, and then I'd leave to go to Highway Pizza, which is where the band was setting up to play after the football game. Well, not they actually started when the band was still when the football games were still going on. But you could tell when the games were over because probably about 100 marching band kids would come in a Highway Pizza and they'd sit in and play with us. Um, but then again, there were at least three other music teachers in the band.
Hmm.
So we all recognized the importance of being available for these kids to come in and play with us. And later on, since I was also teaching a second jazz band at the high school, I taught them part of their training was how you sit in. You
Hmm.
know, it's actually helpful to know some of the songs before you get there.
Yep.
And we were always going to play nothing crazy when they came in. Tin Roof Blues for crying out loud. It's a B flat blues. And you can have a seventh grader playing a B flat blues. So um, in fact, I taught elementary for a while, and I would actually play this thing called fidgets was the name of it, and all it was a B flat blues. So you know, and at the time, my master's paper was on improvisation and the young instrumentalist. So everything just came together so well.
Hmm.
It was there was a lot of teaching outside the classroom. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my favorite stories, you might appreciate this, contrafactum. Okay.
Okay.
That's one of those words that I learned in college I didn't think I'd ever hear again. But I was playing some string bass in the 80s at the Autoport for a jazz quartet. And one time this sax player said, I want to play the song Donna Lee. I said, I don't know it. He said, "Oh, it's the same changes basically as Back Home Again in Indiana." Oh, okay. So I'm thinking Back Home Again in Indiana, and he's playing Donna Lee, and it's working. Years go by, and a high school sax player came up on the stage with the Tarnished Six, and our leader said, "Do you happen to know Back Home Again in Indiana?"
Hmm.
He said, "No." Well, I knew this kid really, really well. I knew he would know Donna Lee.
Hmm.
I said, "Ian, it's the same changes as Donna Lee." So, oh, okay. So next thing you know, he's playing Back Home Again in Indiana while we're thinking of Donna Lee. And by the way, you know where that sax player is today?
Sure.
He plays sax for the Roots on the Tonight Show.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if I had anything to do with that, but he was a wonderful musician.
That's
So
awesome.
I just think the way that story turns around from
Yeah.
Donna Lee to Back Home Again.
Yeah, and
It-
I actually remember it's kind of funny, and I know I was back for grad school, but I think I told you this in years past that when we were there for undergrad, Marty Erickson, I remember going to Highway Pizza and he was playing with you with the Tarnished
oh,
Six, and
oh, yeah.
I was part of the studio and I came to the concert. So
Oh, I enjoyed that. Marty's such a great guy and such a good player. I have to admit, at first he walked up on stage and I was rather intimidated by sitting next to this real honest to God tuba professional. And I'm just, part-time player that teaches.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, but he really made me feel comfortable. It was so
Yeah.
much fun playing with him.
Yeah, he always has that way of doing that. I mean, he always made you feel, right at home, It's like, be able to not get nervous, those kind of things. So,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
before we jump in, I actually have quite a bit of questions about some of your performance and stuff. Do you remember what kind of led you to, interest in jazz and or like, bass playing, string bass, tuba playing? I'm just kind of interested just because you seem like you've kind of followed that throughout your career and still doing it. You know what I mean? And I was just kind of interested if you wanted to share that.
Well, it's kind of funny because for band instruments, I actually started on trumpet.
Oh, okay.
And after a couple of years of that, I was willing to do anything to get out of that trumpet class. So I can remember I'm in a trumpet sectional and we're just warming up. Director cut us off, points at me and says, when he pointed at me, I thought, oh man, how could I screw up so fast? You know, he says, how would you like to play tuba? And it's one of those who me moments. And I said, well, before I could answer, he said, I'll get you out of class this afternoon. You can play it in band. Oh, okay, sure. That's how much thought I put into it. But like I said, I was ready to get out of that trumpet class. And you know what? It just kind of appealed to me
Hmm.
from being one of 8 or 10 trumpets to the tuba player. That responsibility appealed to me. I think it's, being the oldest boy in the family for and at the time I think we were up to 5 or 6 kids. So that sense of responsibility actually did appeal to me. And also my sense of humor, I found out how boring tuba parts are. So I was thinking of the tunes I used to play on trumpet, and then I'd play them on tuba. And, the other kids in band would look at me and, wow, I didn't know you could do that. Well, I'm just going with the flow here, folks. So the rest of the story is uh, the string bass and jazz band. My parents really liked big band jazz and they loved to dance. They
Okay.
really loved it. And they were so serious about it. They actually took dance lessons. I don't know if you ever heard of Arthur Murray, but there
Hmm.
was a dance studio called Arthur Murray. And they took lessons and they'd actually put records on at home and dance in the living room to these records. And I really enjoyed the music that they were playing. So when we got to the middle school, or it was still a junior high at the time, and I found that string bass, I'm going to try this. So that's what I would do. I would play the jazz band music at school, and then they had one bunch of records that they had were all these big band records. So I'd put on the records, and that's where I learned to play by ear. You know, a lot of hit and miss at first,
Hmm.
but then I learned out. Oh well, let's see. They keep talking about key signatures and stuff like that. Maybe I should pay attention to that. Just a dumb kid working his way through it. And by the time I got to high school, which at the time was sophomore, junior, senior, uh, we tried out for jazz band there, and I played in jazz band there for 3 years on string bass.
Hmm.
And even by the time I graduated, I was playing in bands with other band directors. They'd call up my high school. I understand you have a good bass player, and okay, that's how the whole thing started. Uh, so between my the guy that started me on tuba, it was actually his cousin was my high school band director. And between those two guys, I was deeply immersed in playing by ear and playing jazz and all that kind of stuff. And it was a lot of fun. Oh, one other tidbit just for trivia, folks.
Yeah.
My high school band director's brother was Johnny Costa, who played on Fred Rogers' Neighborhood. He
Oh,
was a
wow.
piano player. Yeah. So
Wow.
I actually got to play a rehearsal with him one time. That was pretty cool. He
Yeah.
was, they were all amazing musicians. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's awesome. And that's cool to hear about, kind of your connection with, with jazz because I didn't know that. I know, obviously I've always known you as being involved with a lot of jazz different groups and, obviously the Tarnished Six, and
mhm.
it's just very interesting to hear kind of your connection that it was kind of family oriented that kind of gets you
Oh
that
yeah.
way,
Oh yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and it's just interesting to me that, you went from trumpet to that and then kind of continued that path,
Oh yeah.
kind of laying down the laying down the bases, I'll say it that way.
Oh, well, absolutely. You know what? That really did appeal to me, and I found out how much power a bass player really has. That'll be our secret.
Yeah, I know. It's always funny. You always appreciate this. I think I've been gotten told by many band directors, especially with a large concert band or marching band, it's always the percussion that really hold out on that, on the beats. You know what I mean, and making sure the tempo is there. But I will have to say, especially for jazz playing, goodness gracious.
Oh yeah. Well, I used to admit to my drummers, I said, something goes wrong with a beat, you're going to get yelled at, but I know whose fault it really is.
That's true.
But that helped me a lot too, because I'd be in situations, what's missing with this part, or why isn't this
Yeah.
working? And I thought, well, wait a minute. If I were playing it,
Hmm.
all of a sudden that part clicked in,
Yep.
and I knew what to do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, and
yeah.
and if and also kind of on this the same lines here, and I know you went on for music education, obviously, and I know you were, obviously retired out being in the public schools, and I was just interested in just sharing a little bit about that, what your interest was, getting into that field. I mean, the reason is I ask those questions because I do come across a lot of people who play music, and also play in different kind of groups and they're in different professions, and that's okay too, but I was just interested in just getting an idea of what your passion was with that, if I can may ask.
Well, actually, first of all, uh, it was my high school band director. I said, I want to keep playing, but I don't know if I want to tour and do stuff like that.
Hmm.
Well, for some reason, he said, I think you'd be a good teacher. Why in the world? I don't know how I showed him that. I think mainly because uh, I could be a leader on the field without cracking whips and throwing tantrums and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Uh, I was a positive leader instead of what we see nowadays.
Hmm.
But
Yep.
sorry about that. But that was just something you learn. For example, from my parents and from all the teachers I already had, they would set a good example. So, I don't know how many student teachers I told, look, you want good behavior, you exhibit good behavior.
Mhm.
That's where it comes from first. I mean, kids can't stand hypocrites.
Yep.
You know, you can yell at them all you want, but if you're being a jerk, they're going to be jerks too.
Mhm.
So you set the example, and so that's where that part came from. And then as I went along, it was just so gratifying to be able to do this to help kids make music. That just felt so good. And actually, I don't know how smart I got, but the smarter I got, uh, I wound up in the middle school, which I really liked a lot, uh, even though my wife couldn't understand that. But but I would say, now, the first time the seventh graders would walk in, I'd had seventh and eighth grade. They'd walk in, I say, you are at the beginning of my 2-year program to make you the best adults I can. If we happen to make music, that's a bonus. So then when I'd see him later on in marching band and at the senior high and jazz band and stuff like that, I'd just tell him, look, I'm also in municipal bands. By then, when my kids got older and I didn't have to, I could go back and play with the municipal bands and the other free groups. I'd say, I'm in this municipal band and there's some teachers there, but most of them are other professions. So you don't have, you graduate and throw the horn in the closet. No, you don't have to do that. You can stay with it as long as you want to. And I decided as long as I'm breathing, I'm going to keep trying to play. So,
It's funny you say that because I come across a lot of folks and my own friends, for example, that were in high school. I always tell this story. It was a couple of my friends were an all-state band, and they were really good on their instrument, and they do not even play anymore today. And it's like I
mhm.
always get the excuse of, well, life happens, and I have families and I have jobs and everything you need to do. And I get all of that because, it's even with me,
Yeah.
I want to play a heck of a lot more than I'm playing right now. But of course, you got to pay the bills. But it's interesting to hear, you sharing that message just because, I don't know. It's like, it's something get frustrated with because, as you know, I'm in the community band world a lot
Mhm.
and we're
Mhm.
always looking for people. And how many
Yeah.
schools produce musicians who come out and where are they? So the most common one, and I know percussionists, for example, there is
Mhm.
there's such a need that I'm always looking for percussionists to play. And I always laugh. Didn't everybody want to play drums? You know, like
There
you
was a
came,
time.
yeah, there was a time, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? And I'm just using that as a fun, but it's very interesting to hear you share that because, I know I everyone says, well, the band directors aren't telling, the people coming out of the schools that they should be, continuing, but that's not the case either sometimes either. It's like it's just interesting to find how it is molded in their life. And I know it's part of their school and part of their, in your marching band, it's, the spirit of the school and everything, but I don't know.
Well, you have to set the example.
Yep.
So when those kids were coming in and playing with the Tarnished Six, I said, okay, they're teachers. I'm a teacher, but he's this and he's that. And so you start pointing out the different jobs that these guys have.
Yep.
Um, and then, for example, then I talked about the municipal band and what was going on there. I said, I don't know what half of those people do.
Yeah.
But I have a guy, well, in fact, the doctor, I had this one doctor for a long, long time. I knew him when he was in high school playing trumpet.
Oh, wow.
He was my doctor later on. He's retired now. Guess where he is? Playing trumpet in the municipal band. So, it went full circle.
Hmm.
Um, I just gave a private lesson to another doctor. He teaches. He his patients are older cancer victims,
Okay.
and a lot of times that doesn't end well.
Yep.
But he's a guy that still wants to play. When he can, he gets back to municipal band, and
Yeah.
if nothing else, it's respite for him.
Yeah.
It's a retreat.
Sure.
So you have stuff like that. Let's see what else. Well, the other tuba players like Phil Jensen, what's he do?
Mhm.
Distills and he brews beer and distills whiskey. He's got that whiskey place down in Bellefonte.
Yep.
Uh, let's see the other Jensen. I call them the Jensen boys. They're not related,
Yep.
but what's he do? He does something at the university. I
Yep.
forget what it is, but it's
Yeah, he's a
not.
professor there. Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
professor. Not in music, not in music. Yeah.
right, right. So, I mean, you can look here and there if you look deep enough.
Yeah.
Half the groups retired. What did they do before? I don't know. I really don't know, but
Yeah.
I do know the ones that taught. I do know the ones that taught, but the other ones, I have no clue. They came from all over.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just really interesting to me because it's like, and I've always watching these folks kind of coming in and out of, groups or playing or, and not to be smart here, like I know you were a music teacher and then you retired from that, but you're still playing. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I've come across music teachers who, when their job's over, that's it. They're done. I mean, they don't do anything beyond that, which I find saddened with that. But it's just I always think
oh,
about
very
what
much
it,
so. Yeah.
yeah, like what is it about the music that keeps people to come, and I don't know if that's something that you want to, answer because I know it's hard for me because I try to think of like what is that engagement that, want them to come out and do, performances or continue playing their instrument.
Well, beyond what I already mentioned about
Hmm.
loving jazz so much and doing
Yeah.
that, I thought it was important, again, be the person you want your students to be.
Hmm.
So if I'm not out there playing my horn anymore, what's that show them?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's almost hypocritical too,
It is. Yeah, no, I mean
Yeah.
it's so true because it's like I said when I first met you, I've seen you playing in a group, and obviously you're playing Tarnished Six, but it's like I learned more about you or a teacher from there, and even today you're still playing, and that's what's fascinating to me because I just look at these folks who continue to contribute and continue to make music and do concerts and do those kind of things just because unfortunately, not that that's not that it's going away, but it's just
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always ask that question because it's like, there's just so many people who don't. And I mean, I understand if your interest isn't there anymore, but
Yeah.
it's so cool that you're still like, you're still doing it and you're still setting that example, years later,
Uh,
I'll say it that way.
yeah. Dr. Latin down at Juniata College?
Yep. Hmm.
Yeah. So he's another good example.
Yep.
He does as much as he can on campus, but he still plays. I know he plays with the Altoona Symphony.
Hmm.
Uh, he's actually sat in with State College a couple times.
Yep.
He's a heck of a mallet player. Does a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's still setting the example.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So,
I'm assuming you're still if I remember correctly, you're still participating in that group if I'm not mistaken, right? Still
oh yeah,
yeah, you're still
yeah.
involved with that because I remember you were doing that, last time I know you go in and play because I think it's a community slash college band if I'm not mistaken, right?
It is. Well, he has to do something because they don't have the music degree. Therefore,
Yeah.
uh, it's always small numbers, always
Yeah.
small numbers. So, in fact, let's see, it was last April. I had a week I can't even believe I lived through it. But it was, let's see, Monday night was a rehearsal with Juniata, and then I played a concert with Juniata Tuesday night.
Okay.
That was string bass. Wednesday night, I'd gotten a call earlier from Lock Haven
Hmm.
because we played a combined concert there last year, and the band director said, "Would you mind playing tuba with our group?" So I Wednesday night was a rehearsal with Lock Haven. Thursday night was a concert with Lock Haven. Then Friday, a friend of mine that I'd met, oh, she was probably 15, 20 years ago, at courses down at Villanova campus. She said, I need somebody to conduct the sixth grade PMEA District 4 concert band. Would you do that? I said, at my age, if I'm still standing, yeah, I'll do it. Well, I'll try it one more time. And it worked out. It worked out. So there I was. And that was a 1 day thing.
Oh
You
wow.
know, these kids had, I guess they saw the music, but they only saw me that day, that Friday.
Okay.
So, and we pulled it off, pulled it off. In fact, just for kicks, because I haven't forgotten my roots, I pulled out that old B flat blues and taught them a little bit about improvisation. I must have had a dozen kids come up and improvise on that tune
That's cool.
out of a concert band. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Well, I don't know if I lit any fires or not. I don't know, but uh, I hope so.
So geez, that entire week you said you never wanted to go on tour and you were on tour that entire week.
I guess I was. Yeah. I can't do that very often, though. I can't,
I
not
understand.
at my age.
Yeah, I understand. I understand the time commitment and how busy it can get. I mean, goodness gracious. But that's awesome.
I think I spent most of that weekend on my back, just
Take the week, just yeah, refreshing
yeah,
yourself.
exactly, exactly.
Well, that's cool. Hey, I wanted to ask you, and this is something I know you brought up about leading by example, but this was just something that, I just wanted to ask, and as far as, and I'm not trying to be smart here, as you joked about it, getting older and, and things, slowing down, all those kind of things. I was just interested to see, you made the comment a couple times, and by all means, I hope you're not taking this wrong way. You made it, I'm standing, I'm going to continue to play. And I was just interested in if you can explain a little bit of your motivation. Just because I know, for example, like that week, that was a busy week and you did it.
Mhm.
You played, and you conducted and you taught and you did all those kind of things. Yet, and I'm not saying that you do crazy things. And what I mean by that is like go march 100 parades like me. By the way, I will tell you, I think I'm on three Fourth of July parades, and there might be a fourth one.
Oh,
So all in one
yeah.
day, but we won't talk about that. But
Oh, I don't march anymore. Physically, I have balance problems.
yep. Oh, I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was just
So
interested in as far as like actual performing, and concert band and those kind of things. I was just interested if you want to talk a little bit about your motivation, just because, you could be doing other stuff, and I'll say it that way. And I keep going back to that just because it's just fascinating and it's very great to me to watch you just, from afar. I'm not, next door like I was, but just
well,
watching you perform.
the
Yeah.
simple answer is I'm still better at that than just about anything else. Okay. My golf game is really hurting. Of course, the balance has a lot to do with that. My
Sure.
eyesight isn't so hot either. But
Sure.
in fact, I have an operation for cataract. I said, can you put in a lens to make it easier to see my music, arm's length away? Oh yeah, I can do that. Okay, so so that was actually part of my motivation. I'm going to keep
Mhm.
playing. And if I have to read music, I have at least one eye I can depend on.
Yeah, right.
So it was yeah, I think that's the simple answer, and that might be the
Hmm.
best answer is I'm
Yeah.
still pretty decent at it. I'm not as good as I used to be. A couple hours ago I put on I have all my recordings
Hmm.
on uh, well, it's not exactly YouTube, but there's a music thing on my computer.
Hmm.
So I have that, I was playing that thing, and every once in a while I go, God, that kid was good. So I can't quite play like that anymore, but it's still fun to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, and I am I am playing with another Dixieland group. I don't know if you
Oh,
have heard of the Dixieland Duke Deacons of Dixieland.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so they're not playing nearly as much as the Tarnished Six did, but we're still getting a couple of gigs here
Yeah.
and there.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I did miss that. I missed that like crazy. It was 10 years ago we broke it up. So
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I know it was right around the time I was in, as I say, I've been back and forth to state college. I know you always joke that you never left. I was up there in 1986, my brother went, so I was, back and forth to football games and visiting. And
uh-huh.
then, of course, I call it my second home. I went back, for undergrad, and then
For
I went
sure.
back for grad school, and then, so But and that I remember you telling me about that. I know it slowed down, and I got to hear you guys a couple times before you stopped. But it's kind of cool that you're continuing that, and still playing in those groups. And if I remember correctly, wasn't is it Ned Deal was in that one at one time, I believe.
No, no,
Oh,
Ned
with that.
was let's see, he played some saxophone with well, was it a big band? Yeah, I guess it was. Yeah, I think it
Okay.
was a full contingent of five saxes and
Okay.
yeah, I think I forget what it was called. But yeah, there are a
Yeah, it's okay.
couple of bands that guys are just playing big band stuff
Yeah.
because that's what they like to do.
Yeah. 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 Well, like I said, I heard the name. I'm trying to space it. Maybe it was Mike Lowen was in that one, I think. And is he in that in your group?
Mike Mike was actually our number one sub because he could
Oh,
play
okay.
both tuba and
Got it.
trombone, and he's actually basically the front line guy for the Deacons.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's
So
my yeah, I've been seeing some stuff on Facebook off and on, I'll see.
yeah, yeah.
It's
He
cool.
he's well, I mean, there at one time I think there were six Dixieland bands in State College,
Hmm. Wow.
only because the first one, Tarnished Six, everybody kept showing up.
Yeah.
So hard to sub when nobody misses.
Yeah, I understand that. No, I understand that. Awesome. Well, hey, as we're wrapping this, this podcast up, I had a couple questions. I know you probably already answered a lot of this along the way, but I thought I bring this up to you as kind of my motivation of the reason why I'm doing this podcast. I'm ask a lot of folks who, what their advice is to folks watching this podcast, whether or not, they're continuing to play right now, or they've stopped for whatever reason. As I say, life happens or whatever, or they're beginning to play, at whatever age. Because I do run into that quite a bit. As I think one of my wife and I, we started a community band back in the day, and there was a flute player who wanted to come out, and I think she was about a year in, and she was an adult, and she's still playing today, which is great. So,
Yeah.
and I'm just interested if you had any advice or anything else you wanted to share about kind of, to keep people involved with it, or, have people come out and, participate just because, you're obviously doing it and you're
Yeah.
seeing it being done. So,
I
you know,
think I don't know too many adults that actually don't carry through. I mean, if they decide they want to do it, do it.
yeah,
It's you're who's going to yell at you? It's not I don't
right.
know what your school opportunities were, but nobody's going to yell at you. You come out and you do the best you can. And if you enjoy it, that's all the more reason to stay. I mean, I know, well, like in Bellefonte, I have former students there, State College. I have former students there. Uh, what are they doing 9 to 5? I don't know. I don't know. I know, well, like Meg's I mean,
Yep.
she's going to get her doctorate soon
Yep.
and be a director. I think she has a gig next year at Grove City, I think. Or
Okay.
maybe I should have said that.
Yeah.
But
Well, she's talking
I don't
about it.
know.
We'll say that. Wink, wink.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Good save. Good save. Okay. Yeah. Um, she's almost done with her doctorate and it's that's a kid. God, I can still see her as a seventh grader, the first day of class. And she shows up. I always started the year with a short lesson on improvisation.
Mhm.
And anybody could show up. It didn't matter what they played. Anybody could show up. And here's this kid sitting there with a clarinet. And it within 2 weeks, I'm thinking, God, I got to get this kid in jazz band. So, and here she is, making her life in music. Uh, now, how often does that happen? Not very often,
Mhm.
but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. There are opportunities out there for other adults that just want to play, and nobody's going to yell at you. You know, nobody's going to sit on a piano bench with you yelling at you for not practicing. You know, anybody that comes back to it when they're older, they're usually pretty much self-motivated.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
build on it. Yeah, build on it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, because I know I come across a lot of people who, want to play, and that's my big interest, and I just like
Yeah,
watching folks kind of do those kind of things, and this is
yeah,
a
do it.
shameless plug, but that's kind of the reason why I started a lot of the some of the initiatives that we do, just because
Sure.
it's just fun to watch people come out and pick up their instrument or and play. It's
Yeah, there's
just
nothing to be afraid of. Get out there and do it.
yeah.
And it's fun. It is.
Yeah.
So, and you meet all kinds, why just talk to them, ask them, why are you here? What brought you here in the first place? Okay, well, I had this clarinet in the closet and
Well, it's funny you say that. I always joke because I think if you still have your instrument, you're still thinking you're going to use it, and I always say that all the time, even though if you haven't used it. And a
yeah,
reason I say that is it's been a couple years and it's still in your closet, that's a good thing.
yeah.
So
If you don't have any kids or grandkids or something like that want to use it, hey, what's stopping you?
exactly. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and I want to thank you for you talking on this podcast. I do want to say, and you've been always an inspiration to me. I actually still remember I keep bringing back that performance of you and Marty, even though I think you felt intimidated. I still remember you watching your clear mouthpiece that you had that night, and I still think about that, still today, and so don't feel you taught me a lot, and still are. And I know you've
Well,
been
I'll
a
tell you what. I'll tell you what. What Marty told me, or just the way he acted. I thought, okay, don't make anybody else feel nervous. Come on up, come on up and play. Uh, and if I can do that and that inspires somebody, great. So I can thank Marty for that attitude. So
Yeah, well, you've always inspired me, and I know you've always been a powerhouse educator. I know I didn't meet you that way, in the beginning, but I know, especially in around the state college area, talk about band, or I think what was the joke, if I remember correctly, in the middle school, that even when you retired, your presence still looked like you were still there in the hallway, right? So watching over
you don't want to
everybody.
go down there. That don't go down that hallway. Don't.
So, but I want to appreciate
Uh,
that. And it is, like I said, inspiration to me that you're still, performing today and still making music and still, even recently teaching. So,
exactly. If this helps somebody get the horn out, go ahead.
yeah.
Great.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, and that's why, I said in the beginning, I know off before we started recording, I started these podcasts mainly for this reason, just to hear other people's voices, and as well as see what they're doing and how they're still playing and doing all those things, because I just feel it's important. I mean, it's nice to hear when people are making music and coming out and doing this.
Oh, I should actually Joan's not home right now. She's out teaching music somewhere.
Oh, wow.
I think, yeah, they have a special guest at Grace Lutheran Church who
Hmm.
does just, I think, 4 days of a kind of a music camp for
Okay.
kids.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and she's helping with that this week.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez. Oh, that's
I should have
cool.
put that in sooner.
Yeah, no, no. I
Yeah.
was I was I was actually going to ask you about her. And that's awesome to hear she's out teaching.
And actually, you might want to cut this part. She is older than I am.
We won't tell anyone.
Okay. Okay.
Well, all right. Well, thank you so much,
But then
John. I appreciate it, and
you're welcome.
and I'm so excited to see what the future of music's going to hold for you next, because you're still, like I said, thank you.
Well, I don't know about me, but I do know, two of the music teachers at Mountain Indy Middle School where I was,
Mhm.
both students of mine.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel really good. Makes me feel really good.
Yeah, yeah, and I bet, I know it's awesome. I actually, whenever I talk to folks from State College, your name always comes up, so I will share that with you just because, I know you've touched so many lives, so that's why I
Well,
was
thank
so
you.
excited to talk to you, just because, you know, um, I don't know, it's just when you increase people's experiences, that's like
Yeah.
however it makes you perform, makes you do music. I don't know. It's just
Oh my God,
memorable.
he's still alive.
Still kicking.
Still kicking. Yeah. Good to see you, Josh.
All right. Thank you so much.